Absolutely. Very happy to do that.
Lots of people are asking to reshare the background for some
in the chat.
You can't access the chat if you joined after you shared it.
Okay, thank you. All right. Tanit will do that for you. Thank you.
Fantastic.
It should be in the chat now for everybody.
Thanks, T.
Okay. Well, good morning, everybody, and a happy new year. 2025 is supposed to be a 9-year in numerology, and 9 is all about completions and achievement of goals. So I think from a coach matching perspective, that bodes extremely, extremely well. And I hope that you've all had a fantastic start to the year so far, and that you had a great break, and that you're feeling all energized and revved up and ready for the year ahead. And as we launch the coaching events for this year, I know that on the agenda, Lee has said we're going to be looking at what will be some of the things that will be very exciting for you and interesting for you in the year ahead. I think we just want to say another huge thank you to Hani for taking us through that reflective process at the end of last year. And I really hope that that put you in the right headspace for thinking about what's important for this year. And yes, I'm going to be introducing and welcoming both Hani and Mamochai very shortly. And then I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about 2025 from a coach matching perspective, and how we're going to be positioning ourselves going forward, what my role is going to be. There's going to be some slight change in focus going forward, and we'll look at what's happening from a business perspective. And I know Lisa is going to be talking to you about supervision. So without further ado, I'm going to start off by asking Hani if she wouldn't mind. I can't see everybody on the screen.
See Hani at the moment. I think she might have dipped off.
I was just going to say she dropped off because I know she had issues over the weekend. And I don't know. Yeah, there I see she's being admitted back into the room. So we've got Mamochai and Hani joining us to really, really strengthen our team at almost a little bit more of a commercial business background at a very, very senior level. There you go. There's Hani back again. And I'm not going to steal their thunder, just that this is very much part of the developments that Coach Matching has been working towards for the last, I think, 12 months, and looking at, where are we pitching ourselves within organizations? And we've all been very, very, very comfortable with that sort of like senior mid-level leadership with a couple of execs here and there. And actually what we're doing now is we're spending a lot more time pitching ourselves at the very senior complex executive levels, and particularly within banking and finance, but also within the retail industry and a few other places as well. So I'm delighted to welcome both Hani and also Mamochai. So Hani, would you like to go first and just share with the team a little bit about yourself and what's your passion for coaching, so that they can get a feel for who you are? And then Mamochai will move over to you next.
Okay. Thanks, Susie, and hello to everyone. I'm excited to join the Coach Matching team. And my passion really, and maybe a bit about myself, I'm a former CEO turned executive coach. And I don't only do coaching, I do strategy consulting as well. And I have over 20 years of experience in corporate, spanning various sectors. I've been in mining, energy, I've been in banking for a good 10 years, and also in manufacturing. And my last role, I was in the currency value chain as MD of the South African Mint, supporting the Reserve Bank and also making money for other countries. I am passionate about leadership and building future leaders and transforming companies for long-term sustainability.
Fabulous. And a
Thank
very, very warm Coach Matching welcome to you, honey. We are simply delighted to have you on board and part of the team. Okay.
No, thank you. Thank you. I'm excited.
And then I'm just going to hand over to Mamochai and let you do the same.
Hi, everyone. Good to meet you. I also come from a similar commercial background. I actually went to high school with Honey, which is quite a nice coincidence.
Yeah.
My background is engineering from a qualification point of view, but I've worked mostly as a marketing and commercial executive for a number of years. And I have worked across agri-processing, FMCG, and more recently in e-commerce at Take-A-Lot, and that was my last role there. My excitement about coaching is really emanating from what I experienced both in my journey as well as watching others go through the corporate journey and realizing, you know, the value of having good external support and being challenged to grow and develop on a continuous basis. And I know that it can make a real difference to your journey, and just even going through the journey. Sometimes you just need someone else that can just keep you honest to yourself. So yeah, that's what I'm hoping to be able to contribute. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Really is a delight to have you. And I'm glad that you're getting to meet so many of the associate coaching team this morning, many members. And yeah, so we're in for a very exciting year, and I'm hoping to bring a little bit more diversity of topics and guest speakers to you for this year. So just to give you a little bit of a taste. And what I aim to do is give you maybe a 6-month view so that you can see ahead as to who's coming. I don't know if I'll get around to do a full year in advance, and we need to keep agile, but I'm going to do my best for 6 months. And so we've got Lauren Davis, who wants to do a session on burnout and compassion fatigue. It'll be lovely to have her contribution. We haven't had her part of, attending a group for some time. I'm going to invite Lucille Greef, or have invited Lucille Greef, to do something around adult development and her maturity, identity maturity framework, some of the latest thinking around that. She's from Euphoria. Something on being a good ancestor, and sort of deep time, long time thinking, and how we can work from a legacy point of view as coaches and with the leaders that we work with. There's some ideas around menopause and andropause and life stages, and what some of your coaching clients might be dealing with, and organizations sharing, from an inclusive perspective differently. And yeah, Sab is going to potentially do another session for us on the Enneagram with neurodivergence. So yeah, that's just a little bit of a taster for now. And any more ideas still to come through if you haven't seen my message, or you know of someone who would be able to present for us in something interesting and edgy. And yeah, and then for the agenda for the rest of today, Susie's going to share, well, firstly, I'll do a section on coaching supervision, just a kind of a repositioning supervision for our coaching team. And then Susie will share on the HR trends for 2025. And then, of course, the hot topic is our book, and we'll see how far our writing is coming along and what our deadlines are. And then some business development. And I hope to give you at least a 5-minute body break and breather, stretch break in the middle of it all. So Any questions at this point? I'm not watching the chat. I've got a few too many things to watch at the moment. So yes.
Just saying I'm watching it, so don't stress.
Okay,
I'll watch it for
thank you,
you.
Susie. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Yeah.
Okay.
So come in if needed. All right, so let's see if I can share my screen. This is, yeah, sorry. Yeah, you should see that. Can you give me a thumbs
You
up,
can
Susie?
only see your email.
My email. Oh dear, and I'm so sure I had this.
Yes, so no presentation.
Correct again. It started with your
There
email.
we
Now
go.
I'm seeing it.
Has it come through now? Because it's
Yes.
showing for
I
me.
can see your slide. Just put it into
Yes.
slide
Yes, I will
presentation
do
view.
that. Thank you. Thanks. Okay, brilliant. It's a little bit delayed. Right, so coaching supervision, just to set the context, as I said, so the ICF talks about coaching supervision as a collaborative learning practice to continually build the capacity to coach through reflective dialogue, and it is for the benefit of coaches and clients. And for the EMCC, a professional support for the practitioner that occurs separate to the interaction with the client, again, primarily a dialogue relating to their practice, and an opportunity to reflect on and make sense of the actual client encounters. And here, client is referring to both the coaching client and the organizational systems that our clients are part of. And then the Coaching Supervision Academy, I recently completed my training through them. They speak of who you are as a coach, who you are is how you coach, and a lot of attention placed on the depth of coaching. So attending to both the practitioner as coach and the practice of their coaching, the relationship deepening over time, often referred to as deep supervision, deep relationship building. And the coaches, clients, and the organizational context are also an important part of the reflection process. And then I know some of our team members are also in the therapeutic space, they're industrial psychologists or clinical psychologists. And so coaching has borrowed and grown the practice of supervision and the reflective practice through this therapeutic offering. And this is to provide a structured environment for psychologists, therapists, practitioners to reflect on their cases, give feedback on their approach, learn new skills, and address challenging situations. And you can see that actually it's probably a blend of all of this and a whole lot more. But I think it's important for us to just pay attention here too, to say, am I attending to my own supervision? Am I know many of you have a supervisor. There are many of you who don't. And I think it's just a point in time to say, you know, as part of your credentials, as part of training with an accredited coaching organization, more and more, these bodies are putting forward frameworks and positions around supervision and also forming part of your credentialing. So coaching supervision at this point is strongly recommended. It's not governed as such, but it is seen as an essential part of ethical and professional practice. So not legally mandated. I don't even know if it is in the psychology world, but these bodies do provide the frameworks, guidelines, policies, approaches, and more you're seeing research papers come through from these organizations. It's a method of ensuring a safe and accountable practice within the context of one-on-one, group, and team coaching. So how much supervision do I need? I think this is the golden question. And I know of people who go once a month, or they might go 10 times a year, they may go 6 times a year, they may go quarterly. But here, if you want to read what the guidelines indicate, and I would say this is probably a minimum. The EMCC recommends 4 hours of individual supervision in a year, which is once a quarter. And this is a 1-hour session. So you would have 4 1-hour sessions across the year. And then it also depends on the volume of coaching that you're doing. So for 35 hours of practice, there's a ratio of 1 hour of supervision. And whilst they're saying individual supervision, I think we can just as well say group supervision is equally of benefit. And what I've discovered is that individual supervision seems to be more favored in Europe, and but in South Africa we're much more familiar with group supervision, and there's value in both. And I did some rough calcs around, so some of you and the coaching hours that you would achieve, you're probably looking at double the number of hours of coaching so I made it in a quarter. So you would probably need at least 2 hours of supervision in a quarter. So maybe once in 6 weeks. Yeah, and then the ICF has said 10 hours of coaching supervision as part of renewal of your CCEs. So that you would multiply or divide that by the number of over the 3-year period. So you renew every 3 years, and that's what they're required. Now, as I look at that, I'm thinking that's not an awful lot, given that this is a people practice. And yeah, and the responsibility that we take, and that we hold through the coaching that we do. So I was just interested by that. So you can see it is quite loosely recommended, but I think it's for each one of us to just search our hearts and minds and think, what makes sense within our context. And I just love the 7I model of Professor Peter Hawkins. And, bear in mind too that he's also the guru of one of the gurus of systemic team coaching. And so when you then superimpose group coaching and team coaching in this, then the multiples just extend. But essentially, the dotted circle on the outside is the context of supervision in the broader sense. And then with the circle of 6, it's the supervisor. The supervisor is also the coach. And it could be the supervisor with their supervisor. So they could be the supervisee. So they're almost 2 systems to the supervisor, because remembering that they're also in supervision. But here it's the supervisor with their coachee, the supervisee, and then the individual coaching client. And the relationships between. So yeah, the supervision is of the individual, it's of the relationship, it's of the interventions that they are engaged in, it's of the organizational context. So this is, when I see this, I just realize, how can we not be in supervision? And I really do encourage the blend even of individual and group, because there's something, in a group context, there is something about learning, a peer learning group, but the depth that you can achieve through the individual coaching is also there. I actually can't admit Peter, see, my mouse is not working right now, so.
I did it, don't worry.
Okay, and my screen has frozen. Okay, so I've got a bit of a technical thing. I have to just plug in my mouse to charge, and then I'll be able to move, but I'll carry on for now. So what types of supervision, what kinds of supervision are there? And I spoke of individual supervision, spoke of group supervision, and then there are peer groups. And so what the distinction between these would be that individual and group supervision as standalone would be likely paid for supervision sessions. So you've enlisted a supervisor of your choice, you've joined a group of your choice, and this relationship grows and develops, and there is a value exchange, a monetary value exchange here. And then the peer supervision is usually through coaches who provide, or hopefully, ideally, recommended that they have a level of supervision training, so that they are then, they have a self-managed arrangement where they are in supervision of each other. And obviously that is just a value exchange without necessarily a monetary fee charge for that. And I did want to just say that the type of supervision that I'm referring to here differs from the coach matching project supervision. So you will also be in part of project supervision, which is looking at your assignments on a particular client site, and you would be giving feedback. There's a different ethical and confidentiality arrangement and contracting around that. Okay, and these are some of the international bodies that support coaching supervision. So what does supervision offer? You can read through this. You're looking at a coach's internal reflective practice, uncovering blind spots. There's often ethical issues and challenges come up in discussion. Just ensuring that there is accountability and that the coach is fit for purpose in the coaching arrangement that they have contracted for. And then looking at all aspects of the coach and the client system. Opportunities to grow. There's a responsibility that we have as coaches towards the client's system as well. There are peer learning opportunities, particularly in groups. And then some of the benefits would be increased self-awareness, greater confidence in coaching and engaging in the system, increased objectivity, a sense of community and belonging, along with reducing feelings of isolation. If you're just doing a lot of coaching in isolation, not even part of the project discussions, all of that can be quite something. And then resourcefulness, so that, you know, along with the learning, it resources you emotionally, physically, from a skills perspective to be able to contribute in this space. And I'm going to offer any of that we have our coach supervision team as part of coach matching. And if I have missed your name, it might be because you hadn't completed the info that we'd sought from you last year. But in our coach matching team, we have qualified supervisors, esteemed individuals, and I can attest to the fact that many of them are themselves in supervision, as far as I'm aware. And that just is testimony to the fact that, you know, they understand the importance of this professional offering. And yeah, always, I guess in a way I like to say it's like keeping clean in your role. And so I don't know if any of you in the team, in this session would like to add anything. Particularly, I know Denise and Gorette and Neville are here. Jacques, you're also here. Have I maybe missed something that you're passionate about and feel needs to be given voice to?
Lee, I think you've done a fantastic job. I love the way you framed it. And for me, it's just, it's vital to being a coach, because that's the way we attend to ourselves. And we sometimes get in our own way, often outside of our awareness. And for me, it's always about how am I getting in my own way? So I'm speaking about my expression or my experience of being supervised. But when I can be that mirror or that safe space for someone else, it's different to coaching. It's not being coached on your coaching. I guess that's what I want to say. It's much deeper, it's much more reflective and in its true form. And I love that.
Thank you, Denise.
If I can just add, I think Denise has sort of summed up exactly what I wanted to say, and maybe just to focus specifically on the objectivity. You know, I think we all get triggered by stuff. And I think unless you have somebody external who's not directly involved with your work to talk to about some of the triggers that come up for yourself, you may never be aware of them. And you may never attend to them. So Like Denise was saying, for me, supervision is absolutely critical. I'm not sure how I could work without it, to be honest. And I think it's just to be aware of some of our own biases, our own triggers, where we tend to get stuck, our natural choice of solutions, which may not always be appropriate, or interventions. So, yeah, I can just echo what's been said. Absolutely critical and really the right and ethical way to practice coaching.
If I can pipe up, is that
Thanks,
I'm
Gary.
part of the Commensa Supervision Committee, and we are driving via Commensa that supervision should become mandatory. Like if you're a profession, if you're a psychologist, you have to go to supervision. And we are dealing with situations and coaching situations that sometimes we don't even realize that are not okay, and that we need to actually have that mirror come back to us. And that comes up in a supervision session where the supervisor will actually ask a question that with those 7 lenses that you showed us, which is beautiful, to look at you as a coach and what's actually happening for you. So vitally important. And yeah, we are trying to do that. And I believe that if you are a professional and believe that coaching is your route, that you should be in supervision. Sorry, I'm going to be quite strong about that. I think we try to do that.
I'm behind you, Garrett.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it is different to the coaching circles that you're part of, and you may use you may do peer coaching in those circles, but this is really different. And so I can't stress enough that you're working with an accredited supervisor trained by a credible organization. And because remember that they're equally attending to themselves. So it really is just levels and layers, and of a really sound people practice. And so just to remind you, for those who don't know, some of our newer team members, is that I do offer supervision as part of the CoachMatching value add. But that said, it's just not possible to coach everyone, and I'm not going to be your choice. Supervise everyone, and I wouldn't be everybody's choice. So do feel free to reach out to any of our team members. That would be for a fee, but I will provide it for a certain number of individuals and groups as part of my day-to-day role. And then, we have, there are extensive lists. You'll see it on the Commensa site and the ICF site, EMCC, the Coaching Supervisors Academy International. You will see all the supervisors who are in practice will list their names and their credentials. So we're really spoiled for choice. Yes.
Yes, we are. Sorry. Just before we go on, bless him, Jacques was very patiently waiting. I know he wanted to say something. So, and I think it's also very important because from a coach matching perspective and a branding perspective, I just want to put that into the mix as well. Obviously, my preference is that we would keep all the supervision in-house, because that's the community that we're trying to create. And I agree with you 100%, Lee. I don't think that, you might not necessarily be everybody's cup of tea, but I think everybody could relate to somebody within our team who are offering supervision. And what I'd really like is for Jacques, and possibly then also just very, very quickly, Gorette, I know you're passionate about it, Denise, Neville, to just tell people, what they can expect from working with you in supervision. Just like, how do you approach it? We've got the model, but I love that thing about, who you are is how you coach. And I'm sure that who you are as a supervisor also, and who you are as a coach and as a person, impacts very slightly how you interpret that model. So I think it would be a missed opportunity if we don't get all of our supervisors to say, this is what you can expect from me. Are you cool with that, guys?
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So Jacques, maybe you want to add the comment that you wanted to say earlier.
Yeah, I just want to link to what Neville and Corette said. in regards to what coach supervision is, I totally agree with that. The one thing that I appreciate about coaching or coach supervision is the fact that we create a different level or a next level of awareness. So people don't know what they don't know. And for us as supervisors, and that links to, you know, what helped me in the coaching supervision process is the parallel process that's happening in the coaching process. So normally what happens, we will emulate something our clients is struggling with, and we will reinforce that behavior without even knowing that. And through the process of coaching supervision, I became aware of that. And I think, you know, when I speak to clients or I speak to people in general, there's normally something in their world that's got an influence on them in the way that they behave. And for me, it's just to create a deeper level of understanding and awareness around how I present myself in a coaching conversation. And like John Maxwell said, you know, in one of his leadership books, he says, if you want to connect with people, you need to travel at their speed. So, and I think that's a valuable lesson to me is how do I connect with a client or a coach at their level and not what my mind is saying to me at that moment, to be unbiased and to be present more than ever, purely because of the coaching supervision. Thank you, Susie.
Such a pleasure, Jacques. And, you know, I remember there was also somebody said to me one time, if you see it, you've got it. and often I find, I mean, I do much more of the matching than the coaching. But I always find that as I'm going through the matching, that there is a bias, you know, because like something that I can relate to, and as human beings, you know, and animals who want to create connection and to relate, we are going to pick on those things that are relevant to us as well. So I think that's such an important point. And like I say, I'm not going to force anybody into supervision. The only comment I'm going to make is that as an organization that is trying to professionalize the coaching industry, and as you guys all know, that's been my passion and drive for the last 17 years. Yeah, and going to the market, and when I start to talk a little bit about the CoachMatching brand and how I'm positioning us going forward, it would be amazing for me to be able to add an X% of our coaches are fully in supervision. It's not something that I'm doing at the moment. And I can't stress at the moment, but we're constantly looking for differentiators. So I'm just going to pop that in there. You can interpret it any which way you like. And then should we just go in the order that we started? Denise, Neville, Gorette.
Sure. Susie, I love so much of what has been said, but I think probably from my side, I'm a firm believer in who you are is how you coach. So it's very personal. And I probably, much as I do in my coaching, I think I really try to focus first on building a trusting, safe space. And then it can and should, I think, become quite challenging. So it needs to be robustly safe so that you can be vulnerable and risk and really look at things that are maybe outside of your awareness. And the longer you work one-on-one with a supervisor, the more you can see the themes. And I guess that's what I love doing, is that being able to see the thread of the themes of what's coming up for you, which old trigger is this that's surfacing again in a different guise. So it's deeply personal and enlivening, because it's all about discovery in a deeper and more profound, let me just say in a different way to coaching. On that axis of who you are is how you coach, who you are in the world, how you be is what is at the heart of it. I've said.
Very nicely put, Denise. Maybe the perspective that I can take is picking up from you around the safe space and the opportunity to be vulnerable. You know, I think we do ourselves a little bit of a disservice by calling it supervision. You know, I think if you've grown up in the world of psychology and psychological practice and therapeutic practice, supervision, it's well understood what it is. But I often find, and Gorette, maybe you can reinforce this, that younger, new coaches, especially coming out of Commensa, are very suspicious of supervision. They kind of think it's somebody checking on them and seeing if their work is correct. And so the word supervision for the uninitiated, I think, is problematic. And you need to really kind of switch your mind frame around what supervision is, and that it's not supervision in the sense that we would know it in a business setting or an organizational setting. So that's just the one point that I wanted to make, and how important it is to create that safe space so people are allowed to feel vulnerable and can share some of their problems and challenges in coaching. For me, I think the attraction and you know, somebody engaging in supervision with me would get is you know, the fly on the wall perspective. So you kind of lift yourself into a meta position, and you kind of looking at what's happening between yourself and the client as a coach, with the help of the supervisor sitting next to you. And that I find is extremely useful to think about your practice. You know, often, especially if you have a busy coaching practice, we don't get the time to think about, you know, so how was that session? What did I do well? What might I have done differently in that session? What was the path I chose to go down and follow? Because we have so many options in our coaching, and why did I choose that path, and what could have been an alternative path? So it's really that opportunity to almost lift yourself out of your sort of operational coaching role and to look with those seven eyes of Hawkins and kind of see the different perspectives, the context, why you chose to do what you did, what might have been different. And I think that is extremely valuable in learning. So it's about making sure that you're following the ethical role in coaching as a coach. It's making sure that you're learning and growing as a coach, and that you're also just reflecting on your practice and who you are as a coach and how you show up, as Denise was saying. So that's, I think, in a nutshell, what you might get from being in supervision with myself.
Oh, wow. Okay. Hard act in front of it after the two of you. So the slant I want to take is that I particularly like group coaching. And because of the fact that everybody has challenges in their coaching, in maybe an interaction they've had, and that different coaches in the room actually place a problem, and we start identifying what could probably resonate, and we unpack it with the 7 lens. So we look at something very much like, what is it that's presenting? What does it look like? And get everybody's opinion on it and supervise the actual what's being put on the table. And I find that ethics is huge. That comes up, and a lot of people are always on the verge of where are we at, and we unpack that very well by actually having different points of view, and not only me as a supervisor, but I would hold that space and pull in as many voices into the room as possible around what's being presented. And in a supervision session, you would have 1 or 2 or 3 items being presented in an hour and a half or 2 hours. I mean, when we do it and I just saw Peter was saying that he thought that you had to be in supervision to join Commensa. So you join Commensa, and then it's an option to go into supervision. It isn't mandatory yet, but it is something, like I say, that we are trying to drive. But it is that space of really accepting, and I mean, just taking what Jacques was saying, it's about walking at the pace of a person that's there, whatever that they're sitting at with that's troubling them, that they help them reflect through what it is that may sit and have potentially stop them from maybe going into another engagement, because it's like, I'm not sure. So it's taking that away. And for me, it is about that learning space, because I think as coaches and as seasoned coaches, we all have different approaches and have different modalities that we've actually studied under, and to come with that. And that sharing to me is really also very important and part of the coach supervision practice. So that would be me. I don't want to add more. I think a lot's been said so far. Thank you.
Lee, do you want to wrap that up, or would you like me to?
Does Jacques now wrap it up, but does Jacques want to say something more?
No, thanks, Lisa. I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And yeah, so Denise has made an important point, loving the different perspectives, but she said, did we speak about it being more directive? And so that is valid, because a coach has an opportunity, I guess, from a mentor and a guide to be able to question the supervisor and get answers. So you're not going to find the supervisor is going to be, you know, delving into the question in the same approach as a coaching, questioning and exploring. There's definitely explorative elements, many explorative elements to it. But I think that's the beautiful dance between supervision and the differential between supervision and coaching. And often supervisors find it very difficult to describe the difference between coaching and supervision, because there is a mix, but it's the style and where you're going to in that situation. And I want to add a last thing is, in preparing yourself as a supervisor coming into a session, you're thinking about who this coach is. If it's in a coach matching context, you're aware of the coachee and the organizational context, our client, our corporate client that we're part of. And it's just being able to facilitate this in a much richer, deeper, wider, broader perspective. And I think it's an honor, really, the context that we hold, the space that we hold, and we are space holders of so many complex systems in this modality. So thank you for the opportunity, and I will share the slides, I promise. And I've had a couple of people direct message me to say you'd like a conversation. Anyone else who wants to, please reach out to me and we will match you to the right supervisor. Okay.
Keith, you had a comment, I think, that you wanted to make about other platforms.
No, so I just work on 2 or 3 other platforms, and one of them mandates it. If you want to be a coach on their platform, you must be in supervision. I mean, it's simple. So I think my comment is, I think it's an interesting point of view. I think from the sort of brand reputation and distinction point of view, wouldn't it be great if CoachMatching was the first business, at least that I'm aware of, in South Africa that mandates supervision? So not only does it's like a commitment to upskill everybody, which will resonate with clients, but it's a really key point of difference in the murky world of coaching at large.
Yeah, look, it's why we're having this conversation today, and I have been following up with some individuals around where they are engaging in this, because it is, like it has been said, it's not regulated, but it is absolutely good practice. So you've heard from Susie too. It is vital in our we can't enforce it, but we do strongly urge it. So I'm curious about your saying mandate. I mean, when you submit an application, we ask about supervision, and then if you're not in supervision, we urge you to be in supervision. Yeah.
I think I'm just trying to suggest one. I think there's an opportunity for CoachMatching to be clearer. If you think about how we all became CoachMatching coaches, we had to go through a quality control procedure with with Susie at the helm, the business makes a strong point of that when it's actually talking to clients about quality control. I see this as another way of enhancing that.
So thank you, Keith. And so I guess what comes to mind as you say that is then as you submit your updated credentials, we ask you on an annual basis to submit how many coaching sessions, like supervision sessions, have you had through the last calendar year, and maybe a reflective piece around what you, how you're benefiting from supervision. Absolutely. Let me explore that. Because as Susie said, if we are upholding a profession here and developing professionals, I agree. Look, that's close to my heart. So, yeah.
I mean, I think that also, I suppose, Lisa, just to sort of just thinking about what Garrett was saying, that it at some stage it's likely to be mandated by Commensa. I'm saying, well, why wait? We don't have to be governed by leading, bodies in coaching. We can carve our own path if we think it's the right thing to do. Sorry, I'm done now.
Gotcha, Pete.
Sorry. What might be interesting, because all of you on the call today will have been through that process with either Lisa or myself, and you will know that our approach is very, very strong around the brand and upholding the brand that CoachMatching puts out into the marketplace, and also very strong on partnership and collaboration. So, as Lisa is quite rightly saying, it's not my style to mandate. As the head of the organization, I'm not going to mandate and say you have to do it. And just to expand on the explanation earlier, but what would be really lovely would be to have a bit of a show of hands to say how many of you would be willing to be in that space of thought leadership and saying, yeah, let's do it. Let's put it out there as something that is a kite mark against which CoachMatching would be able to differentiate itself to other people within the South African coaching industry. So just maybe just a show of hands or a comment in the, yeah, okay, great. Awesome. Awesome. Thanks. So if there is anybody that is really opposed to it, then maybe you can reach out to Lee and she can gather that information. So let's do this as exception reporting, because what I'm seeing is that the vast majority of people here are saying that they'd be really comfortable with that. And then let's look at drafting a CoachMatching supervision policy and standards, and we can add it into the brand. We can definitely add it into the brand. Okay, fantastic. Sorry, Lee.
Neville.
Thank you. I just wanted to add something. I just had a quick look at the chapter headings, and there's nothing on supervision in the book. And I think we've just spent an hour talking about supervision. And I'm wondering, in that last chapter, Susie, the one about how to select a coach, if we don't expand that a little bit and talk also about on being a coachee. So how you can maximize your benefit from coaching as a coachee, and then also something about supervision, rather than adding another chapter, but, maybe just reformulating that chapter that has your name against it. And I think you have all the material.
You read my mind. You totally read my mind. And I was thinking whether or not, anyway, I'm on it.
Great.
So I think that's a great idea. Great idea.
Thank you.
I think Trish also had a hand up, didn't she?
She's put it down again.
Oh.
You're fine. Okay. And just to say that Tessa is also a clinical psychology supervisor. So, and I look at all the supervision and groups that she's part of. So, yeah, we are enriched by the offering that we have in this team. Right, so should we have a body break now till 12, and then Susie, you've got the next hour.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay.
See you back at 12.
Good to me. All righty. Thanks. Bye. because I've got my Marilyn Monroe moment going on with the fan blowing on my hair. But it's because I have to close the door to the office because it literally is, honestly, isn't it, Dee? It's like Armageddon out there. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Crazy.
So, yeah. All the furniture on my balcony's been like threatening to get blown off. But I also, because I'm little, most of you will know I'm little. So if I go out in that, I'm going to get blown over. I literally will, especially if I go up to Hook where it really bumps. Yeah, I'll be knocked off my feet. So Peter, I think that's from, I'm not sure if it's from Peter Warnes or if it's
It's me,
Sweetie.
Peter
Oh,
Warren.
yes,
Peter
hello.
Weatherman.
Pete the Weatherman. Please
Yep.
give us an update on the weather.
If you go
What's going
outside,
on?
just make sure that you're wearing pants and not a dress. You might find yourself like a balloon, like Mary Poppins. You might do a Mary
Yeah.
Poppins number. Get blown away.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
Absolutely. And there's a comment in the chat saying that, you know, Rob saying, and thank you for that, Rob, that I'm thinking that CM can make it mandatory. It's not the kind of language that I use. You know, all of you who've been working with me over the years, you know, I don't mandate things, but, you know, what I would like to be able to do is to say, you know, we pride ourselves on the fact that all of our coaches are in supervision. And I think that just talks to who we are as an organization. And maybe that's also a really lovely segue into, you know, the business and the business development and what the HR challenges are for 2025. And for many of you, you've heard talk about the book, which is creating great excitement and energy in a lot of people as well. And what I'm going to suggest is that I'm going to leave the book to the last sort of 10, 15 minutes of my hour so that those people who are not contributing to the book or don't want to hear what's going on with the book, that you can just step off a little bit earlier. So I don't want to force you to stay and listen to all of that. But if you do have any ideas that you want to contribute, please stay on for that that brief period at the end. So, what are the HR challenges for 2025 and where is CoachMatching positioning itself going forward? You know, obviously the two are going to be very closely linked. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen with you so that I can share with you what some of those challenges are and how we are responding to them. So please let me know if you can actually see my screen now. Can somebody just give me a heads up? Because in putting that up, I can't see you guys anymore.
Not yet.
Not seeing them yet, Susie.
Oh, okie dokie. I don't know if I've got sharing host only, all participants. I should be able to. Oh, it's because only one sharing at a time. I don't know why this is not allowing me to share.
So Tanith or whoever's hosting the meeting needs to give you the option to share.
Yeah, she does.
Yes, I have already.
Have you?
I'll just double check. Yep.
So why isn't it sharing my screen? T, can you come and just do it? I'll carry on talking whilst we're waiting to share, please.
Okay.
Because I don't want to waste everybody's time whilst I'm sitting here fannying around. So, yeah, which I do often. If anybody who's ever been sitting in the office with me will be aware of. So in terms of the challenges for 2025, if we just have a show of hands and think about the challenges of 2024 were leadership development, a little bit around culture and something around AI, just a show of hands, who thinks that the challenges for 2025 will be quite similar? Just a quick show of hands. What's your sense? Similar? Yeah, quite similar. You know, it's fascinating. Thanks, T. It's fascinating to me. Can you all see that now? Yeah? Okay, great. Okay,
Yes.
perfect. So the number one priority for leaders in 2025, it's just changed in order. It's so the same things are coming up year after year after year. And you'll see at the bottom there, there's my source, which is, in fact, let me do it properly, just so that I can show everybody that I can actually present on a full screen. So there we go. Okay. Yeah, it's the Gartner from Korn Ferry. Many of you are already working with Korn Ferry. For those of you who aren't, Korn Ferry was the Hay Group. They're the number one leading assessment company in the world, which is why we're also very grateful that they're one of our preferred partners. Gartner, we all know about, the World Economic Forum, and the Voice of the Candidate. So yeah, I think even if we looked at McKinsey and some of the other consultancies, or we were looking at Harvard, these things are going to be coming up again and again and again. So no great surprise. But what is interesting, and the subtlety and the differences and the nuances this year, is understanding what is currently working with leader and manager development and what isn't. So if we look at it, then the traditional leadership development isn't cutting it. And this is, again, this is not new for any of you guys. We know this, all of us know this, that when you look at the kind of the traditional sheep dip approach of learning and development, people will go through that and they'll come out on the other side without any fleas or ticks, but they may not have actually gained very much either. And what we're finding is that if you look at these statistics, only 36%, these are quite damning. 36% of leaders think that their organization's development programs are actually effective. And that could be for a variety of different things, not least that the future of work is so up in the air. It's such a transient space at the moment. 23% of HR leaders and 71% of HR leaders don't think that they're developing their mid-level. And so that's actually coming out quite strongly in all of the research. And I did some additional research over and above this, and it's the same. It's the same across the board. So you have the learning engagement, and then when the real life application, so let's just use an example, for example, conflict. And you go away and you learn about managing conflict, but there is no conflict in your immediate environment. So the opportunity to immediately apply that learning is lost. So by the time you get to the real life application, it could be 6 months after you ran that, you attended that workshop or masterclass or course or whatever it was. And so therefore the challenge is, oh, jeepers, what was it that they were saying to me? What was the model? What was the conflict model? What were the key themes? How do I deal with this? And actually the majority of people can't really be bothered to go all the way back to that. What they're going to do is they're going to reach out to their network or their people that they think can support them, or maybe they're going to reach out to their leaders. And then that creates too much of a barrier to the traditional leadership learning. Does that make sense? It doesn't say it's, this is stuff that we've known for a very, very long time. So what we're trying to say is, what makes for a great coach also makes for a great leader, and positioning ourselves to say, we have been recruiting and developing and working with great coaches for the last 17 years. And so we have additional expertise in this area and in this field. And that's really very, very important and nuanced, because I've always said, I don't want to go into the leadership development space. There are business schools out there who are doing a fantastic job at that. There are organizations, global organizations, who are saying leadership development, this is what we do, and it's validated. We've got the likes of Harvard out there. There's a lot in that space. But where we can be completely different and unique is to say, there's research that says what makes for a great coach also makes for a great leader. And what I wanted to do was just to pause for a moment to reflect on the kind of feedback that we have been getting from our clients. And what you won't be aware of is that I issued a partnership assessment survey. It's kind of like a little questionnaire to our top 10 clients at the end of last year. And within that, there were some questions around, what makes you choose CoachMatching? over other coaching organizations. And I just wanted to share with you that the wholesale, the results that we got back, if we look at what were the two most consistent themes from that feedback, one was the partnership and the partnership approach and the willingness to work with our clients to understand their context, understand their needs, understand their challenges, work within the budgets that they have, provide this diversity of approach. So there was that very, very strong partnership. And the other thing that came out even more strongly was the caliber and the quality of our coaches. And it was such an incredibly powerful and proud, really, really proud moment for me as the head of this business. But I also just wanted to pause there and just congratulate all of you. You know, we're talking about professionalizing the industry. You know, give yourselves a pat on the back. You know, our top 10 clients, you know, and we're talking about people like Standard Bank. They could go anywhere. They could work with any organization anywhere in the world. It's a powerful, powerful, powerful piece of feedback, and not to take it lightly. So when if I'm going to a Standard Bank, for example, and saying to them, hey guys, re-look at your leadership development approach. And I've got an appointment with Lucy Voss-Price, who is the head of global leadership development for Standard Bank. I'm meeting up with her sometime later this month, or maybe in February, I'm not quite sure. But for me to be able to confidently go in and say, trust us with your leadership development, and to trust us with a slightly different approach to leadership development, I can do that on the back of them saying, you know, one of the reasons that we work best with you and we stay with you, Santam as well, for 17 years, is because of the caliber of your coaches. So if the caliber, you know, if what makes for a great coach also makes for a great leader, what are those things? And what I've done is, and I'm going to the marketplace with this slide to say, you know, these are the things that coaches do. Coaches come from a place of curiosity. And remember, Prof. Clutterbuck shared these 4 C's with us in one of his sessions. And so, you know, I'm very confident around his validation and his research. And we can put then to this that there is an kind of like an academic slant to everything as well. So all coaches, we know, the more mature they are, the more curious they become. And curiosity in a world where we don't have the answers emerging from a leadership perspective becomes much more important. Compassion for both self and for others. And in a world where humanity seems to be going completely mad, and I apologize for any Republicans that are on the session today, but when you've got Trump saying there are only 2 genders, male and female, finished in class, and you know, there's just such an absence of compassion, and seeing that crassness that is coming from America is terrifying. Courage to actually point out the things that maybe are not what the coachee wants to hear, and to be able to say, this is how I'm receiving it, against that backdrop of curiosity and compassion. And courage, you know, I'm mindful in the coaching arena. Brad was put in a really tough situation recently where, well, Brad, do you want to tell it, or shall I? Because you'll do it justice.
Yeah, I don't mind
Brad
telling
stuff? Yeah, sure. And can you just focus on the context of the HR person as well?
Yeah.
You know, her reality. Thanks.
So I was contacted by the HR partner for that particular area of the business, and wanting a 3-way meeting with me, her, and the person I was coaching's line manager. And this is quite a senior person already. And I said, cool, but we obviously need to invite my coachee as well. And this message went back, and they sent a meeting request to the 4 of us. Then that got cancelled. And then another one came through at a later date for a meeting with me. And I again inquired as to where's the coachee. And they said, no, they just want to talk to me directly. And I said, that's fine. What is the objective of the meeting? Because obviously, I just need to be clear. I can't talk about the coaching content without the coachee being there. I have no problem having the conversation if she's there, but I'm not going to report back and feedback without her being there. And because that's the confidentiality that I've established with her, and then we would always talk in a triangle if I was, and I do this with anyone I work with. And it goes back to Mark Kahn's Coaching on the Axis, that whole thing that he talks about, for those of you who haven't may not have read it. And I made it very clear, and there was a lot of communication backwards and forwards about this. And then they said, no, they want to have it this way. So I did let the coachee know that this was happening. And we had the conversation, and basically what had happened was somebody had, in the coachee's team, had come to the HR leader with some complaints about the person in coaching, and about particularly how she's behaving under pressure. So now I know obviously what's going on in the environment. And so I asked the question, has anyone engaged with the line manager, or have they gone straight to HR? Because for me, that was already information as to there's a breakdown somewhere in that leadership chain. And they said, no, line manager, he now knows about it because HR came to him. So I said, all right, so you've come to the coach. And then they said, we want to know what's going on in the coaching. And I said, I can't get into that. We need to deal with this that's right in front of us. And I said, what are you doing as a leadership team in terms of, you've come to the coach to kind of get coaching conversation feedback, but what about leading this situation in the business? Like, what are you doing as leaders besides approaching the coach? And they couldn't answer that question. Now, you see, I know more about what's going on there. And the thing I know is that there's a more complex situation with the line manager as well as to why that person hasn't been approached. So, and I know that that person's also protecting their own turf. So I'm in the middle of a very tricky situation, hence asking, what about how it's being led? The HR person inquired as to, well, how come I'm not in frequent conversation with the line manager? And I said, because we're contracted to have a objective setting session up front, which we've had. I've been coaching on the objectives that were defined there and whatever's expanding out of those. And we'll have our next conversation in 2 sessions' time at the end of the cycle to do a proper closeout. And the HR person was dramatically horrified, is the best way that I can describe it, but like dramatics and, oh my word, and my coach meets with my leader every 3rd session. And I can't imagine how you can have an effective process. And now this is a senior person. I mean, that means her coach is technically meeting with a CEO. No CEO. Imagine if the CEO had to meet, and this is a busy coaching context. There are lots of people in coaching. So dramatics. And I said, if that's how you want to contract, that's a different conversation that's got to be had. But it does seem like a lot to have to check in every 3 sessions, especially at a more senior level. So yeah, that was, so I did not give away any of what's being, I said, I'm only too happy to have conversation about what we're talking about, but then we all need to be in the room. But the expectation was that I would share all the coaching content because of this. But what they're completely avoiding is that they actually need to lead internally as well. So
Thanks,
that was
Brad. And
tricky. And sorry, one last comment. The tricky part of it all was I'm also conscious that I've got to hold the space of a relationship,
CoachMatching brand.
Very strong relationship in the CoachMatching context. I've got to manage that while still holding our position as of elegance and gravitas as the professionals, and not ostracize the client, even though I'm having my own thoughts about what I'm experiencing. And so it was a very tricky dance, the whole process.
Thanks, Brad. Really appreciate you sharing that. And not least because I'm sure, because I've had these conversations with many of the coaches who've come to me and said, you know, how do I handle this? What do I do? You know, they want me to have a separate meeting outside of working with my coachee. So I think that was a really lovely example of courage and curiosity and compassion, which actually then led to connectedness. So from if we look at the left-hand side as being, you know, almost not the sequence, but the way that a coach would approach things and ends up with that connectedness. And that's the thing that where the magic's in the match. You know, people want to be connected. They want to say, I've got a great relationship with my coach. And this is how, this is how we do it. What's interesting for me is the flip side of that. And as I say, many coaches will have found themselves in similar situations to Brad. The flip side to that is what leaders are craving and what individuals are craving, and the feedback from the marketplace is, how do I connect? How do I get that connectedness with myself, with my team, with others? And the narrative I'm going to the marketplace with is to say, because you have to be courageous, compassionate, and curious. And if you're doing those, it's going to lead to connectedness. So I'm just going to pause there and open up the floor if anybody wants to pass a comment on this and thoughts from a leadership or a coaching perspective.
Susie, I mean, just for interest's sake, I read about this a long time ago. I've just pulled it up now on Perplexity, and there was a great real test done by a business where they basically took out their trained managers and they put in seasoned coaches. So these guys and girls did not have any sort of industry knowledge or functional skill, but they were just great coaches.
I know what you speak. Yes.
Yeah, and it's just an interest. And so employee productivity increased by 20%, turnover decreased, and overall happiness improved. So this company that did this experiment are now in the top 1% apparently for employee engagement globally. But anyway, it's just a really interesting real life experiment about the power of having a coaching approach as opposed to maybe a more traditional line management approach.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Keith, for reminding me. Will you just send it to me? Save me digging around for it as well. Yeah.
Please share it with us too.
I think we'd all love to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'll put it on the, I'll share it with everybody.
Fantastic. Yeah. Okay. So that is basically the pitch. You know, I mean, if I'm thinking about, how do we differentiate ourselves in the marketplace, it's really very much around this. So I'm going to go through the next few slides quite quickly, because it'll be familiar to most of you. Honey and Mamochai, these may be new to you, and I'm very happy to go through them with you in a bit more detail at a later date. But I'll just go through these quite quickly. So basically what we're talking about is the learning engagement. And you remember over the last couple of years, what we've been doing is we've been saying masterclasses, because we've got GWiz now giving us really fantastic information around thematics. In the engagements that Lee, Tanith, myself, and any lead coaches are having with our clients, we can say to them, so the masterclass that you require could well be conflict management, or it could be leading self or leading others, or whatever it is. And we can also provide basically a leadership development program. But what's going to be different is that we're going to also incorporate some form of coaching circle, some kind of peer learning opportunity, whether that be with a coach bot, whether that's the, setting up coaching circles or leader as coach, but we will put in there the coaching, the social touch point. And for those of you who've been part of the learning and development programs that we've been rolling out at BCX, at StanLib, at Liberty Life, LibFin, any of those, you'll know that we're always putting that coaching touch point in there, and trying wherever possible to create a sustainable coaching culture, and doing this through the repeated connections. So the approach that we have is to say, how do we make and create this coaching culture? And the first one is really around awareness. And what is your strategy around creating a coaching culture? Because there's also, if you think back to that first slide that I shared, it's about a lot of the focus from HR is around culture. What is going to be the rollout plan? How do we offer it? What are the different options? And you can see that this is taken directly from a slide deck that I share with our clients. what's the data that we're basing it on, and let's look at what the composition of the coaching should be. And then the capacity building is really easy. We're going to either look at it as the leader as coach, or we're going to create this internal coaching pool. So Lee's got specialism there. Gorette, I know you're going to be focusing on the leader as coach a lot this year for us. We've got the bronze, silver, gold levels, and then looking at really reinforcing those leadership development programs. And then just looking at what are the different hybrid models? How can we dance at the client speed? So this is the slide, this is the money slide that I share with them. There's a lot on here. I'm not going to go through all of this, but it's just really to help you to see the overall approach, which is what's the solid foundation that we need to build? So it's very much align, plan, and identify who the internal stakeholders are. What is the process that we're going to follow? And then what is it that we're trying to achieve? And primarily the areas that we play in: culture and transformation, employee engagement, talent retention, and managing performance. And how do you do that effectively? And then you're future-proofing your leaders and your organization. Okay. Questions? I'm going through it very, very quickly because I know that you guys have seen most of this before. So then what could some of the components of a coaching strategy look like? And Lee, maybe you can just monitor the chat because I can't see it when I'm on full screen. So if anybody's raising their hands, I can only see 4 faces at the moment. So just stop me in my tracks. You can interrupt me, I don't mind. So what would a tech-savvy but human-centric coaching strategy look like? So from an external coaching perspective, then an internal coaching perspective, we'd be developing those pools. We're looking at a technology versus human. So obviously, we're going to put in place the bots, Coach Vici, all of the stuff that we can offer them through GWiz and the tracking, and focusing very much this year on really, really getting our clients to adopt, looking at the platform, looking at the themes, looking at the trends, so that we can now elevate the quality of the conversations that we're having with them, to very much focus just on the coaching strategy. Okay. And then really looking at what our offering looks like. Obviously, you've seen this before. And then what our leader as coach offering looks like. I can share this deck with you so that you've got cognizance of it when you're working with any of your clients, because you're our eyes and ears out there. You're picking up these opportunities for us. So bronze, silver, gold, what that looks like, the 3 different training tracks, what some of the future fit topics might be in terms of self, teams, and the business, and then what is the coach matching value proposition. So I'm going to actually end the slide deck there because this is just all, that's really just all client stuff, and stop my sharing and just ask for some feedback. What do you think? Just to open it up to the floor. Keith, I know we heard from you before. Questions, comments, thinking around maybe what I've missed? Even yeah, thanks, Gorette. Round of applause for Susie.
Yeah, round of applause.
Okay, so that's basically...
Susie?
Yes?
Paddy has her hand up.
Oh, great, thanks. Paddles? Yes.
Susie, it might have been the speed of the slides, but I was just wondering, last year I know Coach Matching gave some new focus to team coaching.
Yes.
And just wondering where, if that features in your approach and strategy and priorities.
Yeah, absolutely, big time. And I think a lot of it is because of the budgets that we're looking at for this year. Budgets are being cut yet again, people being asked to do more with less. But what it does, where it does fit, Patty, is that very much around the connectedness. And so if we're looking systemically at coaching teams, then you've almost in building that coaching culture. So when we're doing the systemic team coaching, how do we bring in the element of coaching each other into that system as well? Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Anybody else that I've missed? Cool, thanks. Well, I have to tell you, I'm very excited because as most of you will know, my Enneagram 7, my little shiny penny girl, wants to have something new and exciting and dynamic to be able to go to the marketplace with. And so I really feel like this is going to give us our edge. That plus, again, the quality of the coaches and the diversity of the coaches that we have in the team. So what's happening coach matching wise on the immediate horizon? Some very exciting opportunities coming up. I think most of you remember that at the end of last year that we pitched for the South African Medical Research to continue. And honestly, if I'm being quite frank, I wasn't 100% sure that we were going to get it, but we did, and we got the whole lot. So I'm very happy about that. And they're looking at leader as coach. We're already looking at how do they develop their internal capability. So that's really exciting. City of Cape Town have just come to us with 10 new coaches in water and sanitation. That contract will end in 6 months. But, you know, aside from me publicly humiliating the, you know, the mayor or the head of the city, I'd be very, very, very surprised if we don't get that. You know, they are beyond delighted, and they sent through a glowing reference. So kudos to you, Lee, for managing that client as well as you do, because I would probably want to poke a pencil in my eye if I had to move at their speed. Because they do definitely, but I mean, they're amazing. They're amazing group of people. They're just very bureaucratic. So those two are good. We got a phenomenal, we got phenomenal reactions from all of our current major clients like Standard Bank saying we want to work with you more and we want to explore how we do that. Oh, it's just gone completely out of my head now. It'll come back to me. Anyway, so lots of our current and existing clients. Oh yeah, sorry, Corn Ferry. How could I possibly have forgotten those? We get a huge amount of revenue and work from Corn Ferry, and they're looking at giving us many more international opportunities. In the short term, very much looking at Africa. And so from an international perspective, expanding into Africa. And as you guys know, my hometown of London, and looking at expanding into the UK particularly. So that's going to be a very, very strong focus for me and for Coach Matching this year. And then some newbies on the block. Sun International, I've got a session with them because we want to move outside of just the financial services and production and manufacturing. So Sun International, that'll be a great opportunity. I'm meeting with them later this month. Kazang, which is a rebranded Pier 1, and they are a huge fintech organization. So we're in the final stages of onboarding them. There's also ADNOC, which is probably the largest retailer in the UAE. We've potentially got our first client there and expanding into UAE. And then after, I don't know how many years, Rob, this will be music to your ears, I'm meeting with Investec. Yay! You know, so it just pays to be a dog with a bone sometimes. I submitted 2 RFPs, one this year to Parliament, which is going to be fantastic. And that's going to be for their top, I think, 20 leaders, which would be great. And we submitted the reference from the City of Cape Town as well. So, and they work very closely together, those guys. So I'm quite hopeful about that. And then towards the end of last year, the World Bank, and that was looking at 3 different tiers for the World Bank. And I'm constantly being asked for guest speakers now for various events, which is fantastic. So you offline, direct message me or email me if you've got any particular passions that you really would like to be able to speak about. Honey, I know you also love to do a bit of a speech from time to time. So what are your areas that you love to chat about?
So the talks that I've done in companies is mainly around renewal I love that, organizational renewal. And I talk about sustainability a lot. And what is the third one, which is different? Just thinking of the talk. And unleashing intrapreneurship from inside organizations.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah.
So for you guys, if if anybody in your network is asking for those three things, Honey would be delighted to chat about that. And then the last thing that I'm really focusing on at the moment, and I'm working with Lauren Davies. Lee said to me, "Oh, Lauren hasn't been on the panel for ages. She hasn't spoken with us for ages." Lauren is an occupational psychologist, and she and I worked together a lot at Adidas back in the day. And Lauren was coming at it from a well-care perspective. So what does organizational wellness look like? And at the time, we also introduced Anna Marie Lombard, who looked at things from a sensory profile. And what I am seeing, and this is really exciting, is that Lauren gave me feedback to say Coronation Funds, big asset management company, they have literally cut off their employee assistance program. They've just stopped it totally, because what they've said is that this spend, which is kind of a grudge spend, isn't getting fully and properly utilized. And we know that WellCare and employee wellness is really crucial. So what we want to do is we want to actually disrupt, and we want to look at it completely differently. And we're taking that budget and we're giving it to coaching. And we're actually saying that each individual, rather than be mandated to go into a coaching arrangement or have to be on the talent framework or whatever, becomes then available to everyone, which is the democratization of coaching. And of course, it's going to be very important that people can stay in their lanes. So coaches, if they are presented with a problem that should be an EAP solution, that we can refer it to the wellness professionals in our organization. So, Ashika, obviously we can refer it to her. Tessa, we can refer it to her. Lily, we can refer to her. We've also got Neville, we can refer to Neville. So there's lots of opportunities for us to internally refer those situations. But that to me is a big, bold, brave step. And I'm absolutely delighted to see and support them in that aspect of disruption. So I'm waiting to collect a lot of the data so that we can then actually influence our clients to go more in that direction. Lily, do you want to say something about that? Is that yes, no?
No, that's fine.
Genius. It's absolute genius. And actually, by the time they have reallocated to everybody in the organization, it works out to be so affordable. And we've already got that model of the coach on call that is linked to the Human First program within Standard Bank. And again, when I meet with Lucy Voss Price, I'm going to be able to have that conversation with her to say, do you know what other people within the finance industry are actually doing? And try and encourage them to be a bit ahead of the curve. Lee, yes.
Yeah, I think what's also great about that is I think there is some concern around the organizational reporting that happens around those programs, because they do share the insights per division, per department, all of that. So there's a lack of trust, and yet people do so desperately need it. So if we can find a safer mechanism to offer such a thing, and then it maybe doesn't come through with quite the stigma, and then in the coaching space you can still refer on if you feel that there is a definite therapeutic need.
Exactly. It's a really good point, Lee. And I think that there's also a credibility issue with some of the people that that answer some of those calls. I'm just choosing my words quite carefully here because I don't want to.
If you get an answer,
undermine.
I mean, I know somebody in my family once called and they couldn't get through. So if you, I mean, that's a little bit desperate. It's unforgivable, really. So, you're going to know that you're going to get through and get the help that you need.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I'm thinking, you know, some kind of variation on the coach on call. If anybody's got any brilliant ideas as to what we might call that, then yeah, just let me know. So I do think that's a very, very potential exciting development for coach matching going forward. So questions, just open it up to the floor, thoughts, observations. Rob, thank you very much for your comment.
Hi,
I can
Susie.
see now. Hi, Tessa.
Hello. I just wanted to say I've kind of looked at this quite a lot in terms of my own, like what am I calling myself as well? And
Yes, yes.
Better Up calls it a care coach. And then rather than a therapeutic coach, it's called a care coach. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's their
Sorry, I
brand.
just threw up a little bit in my
I
mouth
know,
there. Sorry.
not necessarily the best, but I know that
Yeah.
sometimes I've been referred to as a therapeutic coach, and it's still got the therapy word in it, and people
Yeah,
still
yeah.
get that stigma. And I know that from my own private practice that, you know, you got to reach people who really
Yeah.
need the help.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
through coach matching, I've done so much work, mainly the sort of referrals from you, Susie, where it's a lot of grief and loss work, but it's impacting on their ability to work, which is why it's coming through as a coaching.
Yeah.
A coaching.
So Tessa, I couldn't agree with you more. I immediately thought Care Bear, and then it just so it lost me. The name lost me right there. But I think what you're saying is it's a very important point that we have to just think about the associations of the words that we choose. Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know. I mean, the therapy, I think your chapter in your book with you and Lauren working on it together is going to be a really, really critical one. Really critical one, because Tessa is going to be writing on she's going to be commenting on the difference between coaching and therapy, and when and where and how. And yeah, I think that's probably why it's the very first chapter after the introduction around coaching, is so that people go into it with a really good understanding of what the difference is. And maybe that's where we need to put supervision in as well.
I've made a note actually as well.
Caring for the coach.
Might fit into my chapter.
Yeah, could do. Absolutely.
Then else go ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. There is still a stigma around it. Danelle, yes.
Hi, Suze. Hi, everyone. I was just wondering, with regards to Neurozone, Blast from the Past, is that something that is, when we talk about wellness, is that something that's still being considered as a tool, or have we kind of, is there something happening with Neurozone that we're not working with them anymore?
No, we're completely still working with them. The problem with Neurozone, and for those of you who are relatively new to coach matching, we've got all of our coaches trained up as Neurozone coaches way back in the day. And the issue with Neurozone, or the challenge that I've faced, is that Etienne and his team can't seem to land it as something sustainable within an organization. And I don't know whether or not that was because he was just a bit of ahead of the game, and that well care and wellness wasn't quite such a big deal then as it is now. And I think a lot of it's got to do with the fact that we've got Gen Zs coming into the workplace and they're just like, no, not my personal wellness and the is paramount, my peace of mind, etc. So I think it may well be that it's just now is the time. So in answer to your question, we are still very much partnering with them. They have restructured and rebranded, interestingly enough, around connectivity and connectedness. So I'm looking at how their structure and our 4 Cs can be overlapped, so that we could possibly reintroduce that into the workplace. Okay. But their 4 foundations are exercise, nutrition, sleep wake cycles, and silencing the mind. Those are the 4 basics. And then their 3 emotional drivers were collective creativity, social, and what was the third one there? Can anybody remind me? I can never remember the title, but it was all around gratitude and attitude, self.
No, I know at some stage they also had self-leadership, because actually they've rejigged the whole model now, so it looks looking quite different. I do some very sporadically use it with one-on-one coaching clients, not with CoachMatching clients, but private clients. And yeah, I just think it's they've also outsourced getting the app, so all of that's actually a lot easier than it was initially, and it's still really affordable compared to some of these other things. So yeah, maybe something to look into again as a support. It's about $600, between $550 and $600.
Okay, for the assessment.
And that's for a 6-month access to the app. So it's all app-based now. There's no more, other stuff happening. So it's all app-based, and that's for 6-month access to the app.
Yeah. So it might well be, Lee, that we need to just revisit that with Etienne and his team, and then possibly ask him to come and talk to the team in one of the sessions, and we can link it into the whole well care movement, where people are being, I think that the term that gets used is the worried well. Don't know how many people have heard that before. So there's nothing wrong with them, but they're concerned about, how am I genetically predisposed to this and that and whatever it might be. So the worried well, and that's our captive audience. Thanks, Tanel. Great question, and a good reminder to get back in there with them. Tessa.
Add to that. So I didn't get to do the Neurozone course when it came up last time, so I'd still be keen on it, especially if it's an app, because I did my training through the Resilience Institute, and they've got an app, but it's like way more expensive for the South African market. Yeah, like in the thousands rather than hundreds to have that app.
Yeah.
So yeah, in terms of affordability, it's a very nice check-in for people.
Thank you. Thanks, Tessa. And it's just kind of like more rounded, we're seeing that trend, and I don't want to call it life coaching because there's too many negative associations with that. I don't want to call it the care there. But let's have a look. Let's have a look and see what we can come up with. Okay. Any final questions or comments before we transition to the book? Dun, dun, dun. Okay, Lee, Neville, I see you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on something. I was in touch with a colleague last week who is involved in engagement surveys and the analysis of engagement surveys in organizations. And he was telling me what a big issue bullying still is in organizations. The question I think that was asked is, have you been the recipient of bullying in your company in the last 12 months? And the percentages were very high. And so I'm thinking, if this is a trend where wellness budgets are probably going to go into coaching budgets, then we maybe want to include in our sort of CPD and ongoing learning something around bullying. I know there are quite a few experts on the panel. And how we as coaches deal with bullying when a client talks about being bullied in the workplace.
Yeah, and even just what is the definition of bullying in the workplace would be a great place to start, so that we've all got, collective understanding. Right. That's really sad to hear, hey, Neville? Really sad to hear.
Very.
Yeah. Okay, but thanks for that. Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah. Okay. So I think let's put bullying on the agenda as well, and possibly sooner rather than later. If anybody is keen to talk about that or knows a speaker who specializes in bullying in the workplace, would you just let Lee know, and then she can look to schedule it in. One of the things I have found is that the topics that we as coaches are interested in, I'm also finding that some of our clients are interested in it. So then there becomes a speaker opportunity. So what we've been doing is almost like testing out, like we did with Chris Barker, testing out the AI on the coach team before then taking it out to the client organization and helping the coach to then sort of refine it into something that's more commercially viable or acceptable, or would land slightly differently. So we can also think about those as well. Okay, Lee, are there final words that you want to say before you hand back to me for the book and the writers in the room?
No, all good. But thank you to those who've been part of this and who want to drop off now. So we shall be in touch and see you next month.
Do we need to just do a quick reminder about the cutoff date for GWIS? It's changed, hasn't it?
GWIS, it hasn't changed. It's in GWIS, and GWIS sends a reminder, but if you want another reminder, it's the 30th. We've extended a little. It's later every month because our month-end process is so smooth. So it gives you the chance to bill as much as you can. So happy coaching and tracking and claiming this week.
Thanks, Lee. Okie dokie. Bye for those of you who are dropping off now. And thank you very much for your attention as we've been through everything today. And for those of you who are our writers, look forward to just spending a few minutes with you. Is there anyone on the call who's not contributing to a chapter, but is just here out of curiosity? Because you want to see what's cooking.
Yeah,
Trish, okay. And Peter.
Yeah, at the current moment, I'm out of curiosity, but I would see where it's going. I'd love to see where it's going.
Okay.
I'm involved, but as per my message, I'm a little bit lost as to progress, and I'm also mindful that I have to drop off for a 1 o'clock client soon. So yeah, keen to hear.
Okie dokie. So you've got a hard stop. Denise, what was it that you were going to be contributing around?
I think about navigating difficult conversations. And I'm not sure if that's the wording. Can't remember what wording. I'm trying to find the chapters, etc. Where and how come I can't find? And I don't know about lines, etc.
Okay, so I think that's possibly
Susie,
because, yes.
Sorry, it's Karen, I can help. It's in an email from Susie on the 27th of November entitled Contributing to the CM Book on Coaching, if that is helpful to you.
Very helpful. Thank you,
Laura. And I don't see Denise's name on the list.
No, that's why I was also a bit confused because I don't see it on the list either. So that could either be a great thing or not such a great thing in terms of it not being in the first book.
Oh, I am disappointed because I was definitely in the conversations and then suddenly not. And there was a first schedule of topics and things, and I had a chapter.
Right. Okie dokie. So maybe, Denise, can you just hang 10 on that? And as we go through the chapters, let's see where it fits and how it fits in terms of the overall flow. So what I had thought that I would do is just revisit the original chapters and then book 2 as well, because there's the option for a second book as well. So, and just make sure that we all know who's doing what where. So the first one is the good, the bad, and the ugly, which is, basically the history of coaching. And the purpose of chapter 1 is to position ourselves as credible individuals to talk about coaching as a subject. And that's where I pulled in Prof. Clutterbuck. He's authored and I think it's in excess of 700 books, papers, those sorts of things. So that just brings in some of the gravitas. And David and I are working quite closely and are, I'd say, probably about 50% of the way through doing that initial chapter. I have to be honest, it's been a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. And I'm sure that the seasoned writers in the room don't find that surprising at all. Because I'm very clear about knowing what I want to say. And then as soon as I sit down and I start writing, it doesn't quite come out that way. But anyway, that's a whole nother issue. The second is the difference between coaching and therapy. And this is, Tessa, where I think your input is going to be really important. And then potentially the importance of supervision we can put into there, potentially. Then we've got the Enneagram and coaching. and it would be interesting to get your feedback in terms of the order that I've put these chapters in. So big picture, yes, we're credible to talk about it. We understand the difference between the two different things and the importance of supervision. And let's now look at some of the tools that we use to assist us from a coaching perspective. And one of the tools that we are often using is the Enneagram. So SAV is our fundi. And the thinking behind that is to fast track self-awareness. So these titles are works in progress, but what I think we'll probably end up saying is fast tracking self-awareness and expanding it a little bit outside of the Enneagram, but focusing in the chapter on that. And then we're going to be looking at different types of coaching. So this is where we've got relationship coaching, which is Shelley, and then transition coaching, which is Neville, Lee, and I think Ashika. Is she in your group?
It's Karen.
Karen, sorry. Yes. Yeah. The three of you, which is really, and you guys have come up with a really unique solution, haven't you? Which might be helpful for some of the other coaches who are collaborating to understand how you're approaching it. So Neville, Karen, Lisa, do you want to maybe expand on how you've agreed to write together?
I'm going to have to leave, but I was in one of the groups around.
Lee, Denise, I'm going to reach out to you privately later today, and we can chat. All right. Sorry about that, because that's probably me that's missed something.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay. Bye, Dee.
Bye, Denise. When you said something unique, Susie, can you just give me a little hint?
I'll give you a hint. It's around how we've introduced the kind of the theoretical elements and the frameworks, and then we've gone into the three: leadership transition or role transition, parental transition, retirement transition.
There you go.
Yeah.
Do you want to build on that then, Neville?
Well, yeah, it's. I think what we did is just spoke about transition in general, how it differs from change. I think it's going to need quite a bit of editing because some of it is lifted from my PhD, which is a bit academic, but it gives a nice framework and grounding of how one deals with transitions in general. And then to make it more specific and useful to readers, as Lisa has said, we have focused on 3 different types of transitions, and we'll write 3 case studies around those types of transitions, and then link it back to the theory of what happens to people in transition, and then also try and link it back to a general framework of how you coach people in transition and how that type of coaching might be different from sort of general coaching, if you like. So we're making up a lot of stuff.
But I think what I've really, really liked is the fact that the 3 of you got together and just co-created a structure, didn't you? That works and enables each of you to talk to your areas of passion and expertise as well. Because I know, Tessa, you were struggling with that. So then we've got the next subject, which is emotional literacy and coaching, which Dan is going to contribute. And again, it's really, I think, very much related to the self-awareness component and enabling people to understand the relevance of emotional literacy. If you don't have the language, it's going to be very difficult to be emotionally literate. Then we've got Brad, Coaching for Better Humaning. And my understanding, Brad, is that you're coming at it from the perspective of, the books that you've already written and humaning from a self-leadership and leading others perspective. But you can maybe expand on that a little bit. Oh, you're on mute, sweetie.
I'm just keeping you in suspenders.
Thanks.
Yeah, the angle is leans more towards self and leading others, but could be definitely applied as coaches as well, in the context of everybody is able to human better, and everybody's able to guide others to human better or lead others to human better. So it does triangulate between the coach, the individual, and the leader.
Thanks. And then we had systemic coaching, systemic team coaching, and we were going to put something in there from David Clutterbuck. But actually what I'm going to do is David is going to contribute in the beginning, right at the beginning. He's going to include that in terms of, when we're talking about coaching, we're not just talking about individuals. And so we're going to be talking about coaching on the access, coaching systemically, and obviously the systemic team coaching component and awareness raising is in there, because book 2 is all going to be around teams and working with teams. So that one is going to be collapsed slightly. And then there is the wellness coaching, which Lily and Ashika, and I think Vandana wanted to come at it from a PQ perspective. Lily, do you want to chat about that a bit? Trish?
Yeah, I'm off.
Trish is, oh, you've got to go. Okay, cool. All right, thanks. Bye.
So we've actually got a big meeting set up for next week.
Right.
For Vandana's on a very long road trip, and she doesn't have any connectivity, I don't think. Well, very sporadic. So we decided, rather than trying to do it, individually and then putting that in, that we'll rather get together, kind of get
exactly
big picture, and then see how everyone can contribute into that. So that's the plan.
Perfect. So thank you. So then the last one is Gorette, your leader as coach, and looking at that, and you're going to be developing that. I think, were you going to be doing that with Tracy? Oh.
You did say that, Susie, but we have not connected. So I must maybe just reach out to Tracy. I don't know what you've sent to her, but I don't recall seeing that pack either. So if you don't mind resending that email from the 27th of November, I'd appreciate that. And then maybe just reach out to Tracy. But this is for April, hey? This is April. This is book 2.
Well, yeah, that's for book 2. Yeah, that's for book 2. So then I just want to pull up the timeline we got for book 1 from multiple sources. They basically said that they would really like to launch the book at the Learning and Development Conference on the 11th and 12th of June. So they put that as a peg in the ground, and then have worked back from that. And what I'm suggesting, because I see it's 1 o'clock already, is that I just share this timeline with you, but and you can have a little look at all the different activities that need to happen to get to that final point. I'm really nervous about saying this. So I'm going to put your faces back on the screen so I can see the reaction. They've asked, can we have the first draft by the 17th of February? Neville, I thought that might be what would happen. So if we can't, what's the closest date that we could possibly commit to going back to them? Because obviously there's going to be a cascade effect.
So for me, I would, obviously I'll work into whatever we have to do, but I am going to be on my own in Knysna from the 15th of February onwards, specifically to really focus on the writing. Yeah, so end Feb for me would be first prize.
Okay, next 1 March. Okay. Gorette, your book 2, Tessa? Because I think you've also got a big chunk.
So mine is actually a little bit the opposite, is that I start teaching on the 14th of Feb, and so I'm like powering on as fast as possible before I get inundated with some uni work.
Okay, so you're already quite ahead of the Yeah, ahead of the curve.
Wouldn't say that, but it's part of my plan.
Okay, so Lisa, Neville, and Karen, what's your thinking? Because I know you've got quite a bit of stuff done already.
Well, we have a meeting tomorrow, so can we defer our feedback until after that
tomorrow?
when
Yeah,
we've
you
recovered from the shock?
Yes, okay. I know I did sort of take a big breath before I said that, because also for me it's just like okay.
Yeah, I guess understanding what is thereafter involved, because like intuitively I'm going end of Feb would be better than middle of Feb. Yeah, but
yeah,
maybe put the timeline between. Okay, there we go.
Yeah, so you can see, well, you can see now. I didn't want to share earlier because I just thought nobody's going to get beyond the 17th of Feb. So is that better? So draft knowledge to give feedback 17th to the 28th, receive the full, all the chapters and front matters. So I think, if we didn't have every single chapter in by the 17th of Feb, it wouldn't necessarily be a train smash, but as long as we had the majority, the vast majority, and then you can see that there's quite a significant timeline involved. I hate the fact that it's got Susie everywhere on this, because I've got to allocate a lot of time for this printing and then publication date. So that's what it's looking like. I'm gonna share that with all of you so you can see it and see what the implications might be and where we can shave off we can buy ourselves an extra bit of time.
I mean, I guess for us, seeing as we are three working on a chapter, we could definitely, I can't speak for the others, but of course we could, really knuckle down and get it in towards that middle of February date.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go. Well, I'll wait till tomorrow, Neville, until you guys have had your meeting. Brad, you've been very quiet. That always worries me. What's your thinking?
No, I know how long it takes, how deceptively, how this takes you by surprise. That even if I allocate 50 hours to write, it's 100 hours. So I was just having a look at my calendar because it's very little time. So it's about it. You just got to allocate time.
Yeah.
So I was just my silence was I was just trying to see, okay, where am I going to get
where
this?
Where can I block out?
And because that's the only way. It's focus, deep focus time is. So that's my silence, because obviously this time of the year is mad.
Yeah,
so
I know. I do know. And let me see what I can do and try and push back a little bit more. But
yeah, just something to comment on, having been down this road. Perfectionism is the enemy right now.
Yeah.
So it is a first draft. It is a first draft submission. And I think that's the important thing, is get the first draft submission in. They'll come back with feedback. And then don't take it personally.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Anybody that's ever been involved in any kind of creative process or endeavor will know you absolutely can't take it personally at this particular point in time. Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Bradster. I'm really mindful that we've overrun.
Oh, sorry, Susie.
No, go, Tessa.
Did I see correctly that they're going to be doing the editing and handing back to us?
Yes.
So that's also, can be done individually and back and forth in terms of the deadlines. But I just remember my last chapter. I can't believe how many times it came back and forth. It changed so much in that time. So I'm just agreeing with you, Brad, that the first draft doesn't even look like it's in the end.
Yeah. I think that's a really good comment, actually, Tessa, that it doesn't actually resemble what the first draft looked like. So I'm also trying to be not too precious about perfectionism, because you're right, Brad, it is the enemy, isn't it?
It's just difficult for an Enneagram 1.
Yeah. I think it's difficult for anyone, but that focused time is the thing that I also haven't had, because I've been very distracted with a whole bunch of different things, not least, getting CoachMatching up and running again for this year. So it's we've overrun, my apologies, by 10 minutes. I'm going to commit to sending out those that timeline for everybody. And then Lee, you and I are going to check in tomorrow anyway. So Neville and Corin, I'll get the feedback from Lee. Okay, thanks. And then I'll just share with everybody what we've agreed. Okay, brilliant. Thanks, everyone.